Retiring early sounds like a dream. No alarms, no deadlines at work, just days filled with freedom. But what if that freedom comes at a cost? I'm talking loneliness, a loss of purpose, and possibly even depression. In this video, I'm going to talk about the dark side of early retirement and how some people's fire-induced dream turns into a nightmare. If you don't know who I am, my name is El-Gorr. I run a company called Freeman Publications, and over the past 5 years, we've helped thousands of people not only secure a comfortable retirement, but maintain a sense of purpose while doing so. And so in this video, I'm going to share the hidden risks of early retirement, as well as my 3-step framework to ensure that whenever you retire, and no matter what your retirement looks like, it's purposeful and fulfilling. So stay tuned and let's get right into it.
The dark side of early retirement, and this was inspired by a Reddit post on the FIRE subreddit that then went semi-viral on Twitter, and that's how I found it. And this gentleman, he retired at the age of 52 and he is bored. So I want to just sort of dissect this and talk about why I think this is and sort of my prescription, so to speak. And if you're not familiar with what this FIRE movement is, it's the movement of people who are very, very frugal, and they save a lot of money and they invest a lot of money that allows them to retire earlier than most. So a lot of these people retire in their 40s, 50s, and hey, if they're really, really good, in their 30s as well. And this is really sold as the dream for so many people. And it is more of a dream than reality for most, but for those it is a reality for, there are some downsides that only really become apparent when it happens to you. And I want to outline what those are and really how I believe that people can avoid it. So here's the post that inspired all of this. This gentleman, 52 years old, and I'm quoting him directly here. About a year ago, now I, a 52-year-old male, not 52 million net worth that some people misinterpreted this as, 52-year-old male, married, suddenly found myself in a position to retire early. He made a small killing in stocks, quit my cushy job mostly due to deeply despising my boss and the culture of engineering nerds I had to work with, if it can be called a culture, but I digress. So already this person has some resentment towards where they used to work. And these are some of the thoughts he put down. And I've got a few of them here, and then I've saved the most important two for the end. None of his friends are available, so he can't really play golf as much as he'd like. He slept and napped more than he should. That sounds like a symptom of depression to me. I consumed too much online BS. Yeah, once again, you've just got too much free time. I did not exercise nearly enough. I smoked too much of the devil's lettuce, drank too much, vaped too much. Man, you're 52 years old. What are you doing vaping? I'm working on changing this. So at least he's putting the best foot forward. But it was these two things that I thought were most interesting. My wife says I'm depressed. So I'm not diagnosing anyone here. I'm just paraphrasing him. She's probably right. I'm definitely not on my peak mentally or physically. I'm working on this as well. I feel like I'm under house arrest due to having numerous pets and obligations around the house. Now, I know where he's coming from the pets thing. You know, I have a Samoyed, and my goodness, he's harder to look after than the baby sometimes. But anyway, there's a bunch of people who chimed in on this. This guy said he coasted for about a year, experienced much of the same things. This lady says she felt similar after becoming a housewife. You know, it's isolating. All you really do is spend time indoors in your own home doing chores. You don't feel like anything's really getting done. And then this gentleman, Aaron, says, this is what happens when you myopically pursue a number and not the spending/doing plan after you achieve it. And that's one of the cruxes of the issue here, because it's one thing to aspire to this. It's another to actually have a plan for when you do realize it, because hopefully you do realize it. And so what I've found is there is a lot of truth to what people are saying here. And the issue is you've spent all this time focusing on hitting a number on a screen. That's all it is, right? Especially if you've done it in stocks, but even if you've done it just through diligent saving and stacking up, you know, 401k, for example, you've got this big number on your screen. People call this the FIRE number. That's the number you're comfortable leaving employment for. And yeah, while that's important, it's meaningless, right? It doesn't really define who you are as a person, nor should it give you a real sense of identity. Because if your whole identity is that, then you're going to have a whole host of other issues. So I think what's most apparent, first of all, is the save until you hit this number plan really does not work. Because I've seen this before. People exercise their savings muscles for so long. They see this number go up and up and up and up. And then they are forced to see it go down because they have to withdraw the money. Because obviously you need to live, right? And if you don't work anymore, you need to start withdrawing some of your savings for living expenses. This is why people think they need way more than they have, because they don't really want to see the number go down. But it also leaves you at the mercy of the stock market, because the biggest fear that a lot of people in the situation have, and this is speaking from having spoken to hundreds of them over the past couple of years, is they are scared that they will retire and then the next day the market will crash. So whether that number's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 500,000, no matter what it was, they're worried it's going to get cut by 25 or 30%, which is not uncommon in the stock market. It happens once every few years. But they're just terrified it's going to happen on day one of their retirement, especially with the rising living costs and combined with the fact that people are living longer now. If you and your spouse are both 50 years old, there's actually a 50% chance that one of you is going to live until 90. And for a lot of people in this situation, it's not just yourself you have to consider. You've probably got a spouse, a husband or a wife. You've probably got kids. You may even have grandkids already. And that in itself, there's more and more people to support, at least for some of that portion of your retirement. And the other factor that I don't see too many people talk about is it's a personality thing. The kind of people who achieve early retirement, you've probably got a few of these traits. You're probably driven, ambitious, hardworking. You're probably also intellectually curious. And for a lot of you, work has been the big provider of your sense of purpose until now. There's a really interesting book about this, and it talks about how people in the West talk about themselves as opposed to people in the Eastern world, like in Asia, for example. And people in the West tend to lead with their profession first and foremost. For example, if you say to someone, oh, like, tell me about yourself. Oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an engineer, I'm a teacher. Whereas someone in the Eastern world may lead with, I'm a father of 3, or, I'm a mother of 2. So work is so many people's identity. And when that's no longer there, there's a huge void that opens up. You go from 100 to 0. You go from working 40 odd hours a week to 0. And that, for most people, is going to be the biggest lifestyle change they've had in 20 or 30 years. Having kids is a big lifestyle change. I've experienced this myself in the past year. Stopping work is probably the next biggest one for people throughout their adult life. And so for so many people, this void is going to open up. And I think this is what the gentleman earlier in the video was really referring to. And yes, hobbies and family can fill some of it, hopefully a decent chunk, but there is something that's missing that hobbies and family can't necessarily fill, and that is the intellectual side, which leads you to becoming a victim to these irrelevant topics. Like the gentleman saying, I consume too much online BS. And it happens to so many people because you simply have to fill the hours somehow. Your calendar used to look like this. Now it probably looks something like this. And once again, there's a void, it's going to be filled. So here is my framework to ensure this doesn't happen to you, or if you're currently in this situation, how to get out of it. So first of all, the reframe is you're not retiring from anything, you're retiring to something. So you may not be quitting a job. You may just be doing less hours now to pursue other things. But even if you are leaving full-time work, you've got to have something to retire to. And the other part is comfortable retirement is no longer just a set number that you withdraw from, and I'll explain in a little bit what it really is. I developed this framework, and it's beyond genius because the acronym looks like the picture. There's probably a word for that, like onomatopoeia. When the word sounds like what it means, there's got to be one for visuals. So this is the PIE framework. Retirement, a good retirement anyway, is split into 3 parts: purpose, income, and exploration. This is the PIE framework: purpose, income, and exploration. So purpose, simple. You've got to have a reason to get up every day. For so many people, you need to keep exercising that provider muscle, that self-sufficiency muscle that you've been working for the past 20, 30, 40 years. Just turning it off is not going to happen. It also gives you an element of structure and routine, which is essential to your overall well-being. Income, obviously, we need money. So comfortable retirement is not a set number that you withdraw from. Instead, it's monthly income that you can generate from your portfolio to maintain your standard of living. This is on top of what you're already getting if you've got Social Security, if you've got a private pension. But the cool thing is you can start this long before you're even thinking about retirement. You don't have to wait until retirement to get this in place, because it allows you to get ahead of the game, let your gains compound, and especially if you don't need to withdraw the money, because you can just keep it all in, keep stacking it up, and then when you do need to withdraw, that monthly number is going to be a heck of a lot bigger. And then the third part is what I call exploration, which is not just physical exploration. You know, you should travel a lot while you could. It broadens the mind. It's one of the best things you can do with your money. But it's also the mental exploration, that intellectual curiosity, which once again, you should never turn off, and most people can't. Continue learning, forcing yourself out of your mental comfort zone, and just keeping that brain ticking over, keeping that cognition muscle working. It's a major factor in not just mental longevity, but physical longevity as well. Look at people like Warren Buffett, in their 90s, sharp as a tack, or lesser known, Ed Thorpe, who's one of the best options traders of all time. He also developed he developed card counting in its modern terms. And this is Ed Thorpe in his 90s. Does he look like he's 90 years old? Absolutely not. Keeps you young. So here's my prescription. You find a method where you can spend 4 or 5 hours per week generating income from a portion of your investment portfolio. Doesn't have to be the whole thing. You can just use a portion of it. No more than 1 hour a day. You stay mentally sharp. You solve challenging yet solvable problems for a reason. This isn't just doing Sudoku or a crossword for the sake of it. There's an actual reward at the end, but the stakes are a lot lower, so it's kind of fun. And you can pass down your knowledge to the next generation if you want to do that as well. I personally like a strategy called the wheel strategy. I'll discuss more about that at the end, but for now, just know this is my preferred method that's going to facilitate this. Now, the benefits of doing this, they're monetary because you get consistent cash flow because you're making income rather than your entire portfolio just being unrealized capital gains that at some point you're going to have to start selling. You can also be as conservative as you want. You know, using this strategy, the wheel strategy, you can make 9-10% a year, match the index, but instead it's in income rather than capital gains. Just using this strategy on the indexes like the SPY, for example. If you push the boat a little bit further, let's say you want to use the NASDAQ or the Russell 2000 or some dividend stocks like Apple, for example, you can make 12, 15, 20% a year. And if you push the boat out a little bit further again, some maybe some large cap individual stocks, not super high flying names, but you know, well-established companies, Eli Lilly, for example, Broadcom, Visa, MasterCard. In a good year, you can do 25% in a year. And so even if you're not yet retired, it's a reliable second income stream that'll be there if your job goes away, if you get an interruption in income, or let's say you're a business owner and your business hits a rocky patch. Now, I own a business myself, and in the middle of 2024, one of the income streams in my business was interrupted for 4 months. And guess what? I use this strategy to make up some of the gap. That's why it's there, not just for retirement, but in the meantime as well. And so if you can make, let's say, 2,000, 3,000 a month from a 100K portfolio without having to withdraw something, that's worth exploring today, no matter if you're 5, 10, 20 years away from retirement, because that can really help just with living expenses. And you can also use some elements of this strategy to hedge your portfolio during a market downturn. There's a non-monetary aspect to it as well, though, because there's a peace of mind part, that purpose, that exploration part of the PI framework I talked about. Because even when you decide to step away from your work, you've still got something that you can wake up in the morning, look forward to, and rely on. But it's not something that's brand new because it was already a part of your life. And you avoid that aimlessness that many retirees have in their first 1 to 2 years. Plus, you can also share it with a community of like-minded people. And so these are some screenshots from our community, because you might be thinking, well, this sounds lovely. Does it actually work? Well, Anthony in 2024 did 56.3% in his trading accounts. And you don't have to be a financial genius to work out that 56% in a year is a really good return. You can use the money to pay for vacations, just like Janice did here. Options income paid for the family Europe trip. When? I love this. 13 days into 2025, he's already made $1,000 from his options trade, and he's done so while on a cruise. And we got a rule in our community: any gains you make on vacation, they count double. But the fact that you can do this from anywhere in the world, I think, is really, really cool. And I do mean anywhere in the world, because Stephen here, one of his trades hit profit while he was at Everest Base Camp in Nepal. What's that, 15, 16,000 feet in the air? And he's seeing profitable trades. How cool is that? And you get to share these wins with a community that wants to see you win just as much as they want to see themselves win. As Helen says, supportive, amazing, inspiring, life-changing community. And she did 20% in her first year with us. So if you want to learn more about the wheel strategy and the mechanics of how it actually works, just above my face in this video is going to be another video where I actually walk through the strategy step by step. You see me actually trading live. It's a full, in-depth, no holds barred walkthrough. So check that out if you're not too familiar with the strategy. If you are a little bit familiar, or you want to work with us and help you put this into your life and help you get your accounts up and running, get some profitable trades, then there is a link down below to have a chat with me about potentially doing this and potentially working together. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and I will see you in the next one.